Welcome everyone to the Wellness Masterclass entitled Trends 2021 Mid-Year Update, Where the Future of Wellness is Heading, with the omniscient Beth McGroarty and her band of trends forecasters, Elaine Glusac, Sandra Ballentine, Veronica Schreibeis Smith, and yours truly. More about this in just a few minutes. I'm Nancy Davis, Chief Creative Officer and Executive Director of both the Global Wellness Summit and Global Wellness Institute, and I'll be your host for today's call. I also wrote one of the trends we'll be discussing. Before introducing my fabulous guests, I want to introduce a truly fabulous woman, Susie Ellis, Chair and CEO of both the Global Wellness Summit and Global Wellness Institute. For almost 2 decades, Susie has been eerily prescient when it comes to what trends will drive the wellness world. And working closely with Beth, Susie has helped shape this report every year. It was Susie's idea to take a look mid-year, and what a year it's been, to see just how we're doing on forecasting wellness trends. Susie?
Thank you, Nancy. I just want to take my minute to let the audience know what our secret sauce is to being so successful with trends. Number 1 is our team led by Beth McGroarty, but it includes our entire team because we work on trends and forecasting all year. Number 2 is our sister organization, the Global Wellness Institute, and its research, which they do year round and which has informed a lot of our trends. Number 3 is our global network and the annual Global Wellness Summit, where we meet, and whether it's virtually or in person, as we do every year, so we have a global view. And number 4, the secret sauce, is the media. And you will find out today, because we have media with us, just how important they are to helping us look forward as to what is happening in the world of wellness. So, Nancy, over to you.
Thank you so much, Susie. Also on this call are other members of our team: Michelle Gamble, Beatrice Hochegger, Betsy Israelite, Cassandra Kavanaugh, and probably others. It takes a village, and we've got the best village. I want to just a special shout out to Cassandra Kavanaugh, who was the executive editor of this mid-year update. As soon as this call is over, you can purchase the full report, inclusive of the updated sections for each of the trends, on the Global Wellness Summit website. We'll also include a link to that in the follow-up email we send to all who registered for this call. If you want to keep track, that's the first plug for purchasing the report. Now, I really don't need to spend much time refreshing you on Zoom. We're going to keep everybody muted. You can watch this call either in speaker or gallery view and make that choice at the top right of your screen. Use the chat as you are to tell us who you are, where you're from, your affiliation, your media outlet, or whatever, and post a question. We'll try to get to some of those, but it's a packed agenda. This call is being recorded, and we will share not only the video, the link to the video, but the link to the chat, because the chat is really fun and very robust on these calls, and people like to look at that. You'll get all of that in a follow-up email. So thanks so much for your cooperation and for being here. Now it is my very special and unique pleasure to introduce my colleague and very dear friend, Beth McGroarty, VP for Research and Forecasting at both the Global Wellness Summit and Global Wellness Institute. Beth was the star of a previous Wellness Masterclass where she broke a record for the number of people who registered. Today, she broke her own record with 1,764 people from 100 countries registered. I've often referred to Beth as the brain trust when it comes to wellness trends. Her vast knowledge extends well beyond most trend spotters. Beth brings to her work a rigorous, focused, dare I say, almost obsessive interest and understanding of the world of wellness and its place in our lives. Beth is a bright light in our world. She helps us all know what's important. She digests literally hundreds of articles and bits of information and uses her talents as a writer, crafting what has become the voice of global wellness. Beth is the executive editor of our annual trends report, author of the bi-weekly Trendium, a publication of the summit that highlights the trends throughout the year, updating them and sharing relevant articles in the media. Beth is also author of The Brief, a publication of the Global Wellness Institute, focused on proprietary research and the evidence that supports the industry. Both newsletters reflect Beth's extraordinary intellect and her commitment to bringing a unique and powerful voice into this global landscape. Beth also writes the expert Q&As, which have been widely read and very well received. Beth is joined today by a few of her close allies in the trend forecasting world. Elaine Glusac, a frequent contributor to the New York Times travel section, where she writes the Frugal Traveler column. She has also written for AARP, Afar, Condé Nast Traveler, National Geographic Traveler, Real Simple, Travel and Leisure, and Virtuoso Life. In 2019, Elaine was named Travel Journalist of the Year by the Society of American Travel Writers. Needless to say, she wrote about travel for us. Also with us today is Sandra Ballentine, a New York-based editor and writer who specializes in beauty, health, and wellness. She is currently beauty and health editor at large at W Magazine, and before that was beauty style director at T, the New York Times style magazine. She has contributed to Vogue, Departures, Condé Nast Traveler, and consults for brands in the beauty and wellness sectors. Veronica Schreibeis Smith is CEO and founding principal of Vera Iconica Architecture and Developments, a B Corporation. Her brand is a global pioneer in wellness architecture, the art and science behind designing built environments that enhance human and planetary well-being. Veronica is a WELL advisor and chairs the Wellness Architecture and Design Initiative for the Global Wellness Institute. All of these women are renowned in their fields, wonderful writers, and they all have crystal balls, which is really good for us. I am so thrilled to host this illustrious group today. And while I am also one of the trends writers, it is just too weird to interview myself. So many of you know me from these calls, and I'd like to concentrate instead on my guests today. I'll just say that my trend, the one I wrote for the original report, Resetting Events with Wellness, continues to be of great interest to the conference and events industry and beyond. And I've done podcasts, interviews, and been on several panels. The way businesses are approaching events has everything to do with wellness now, with a laser-like concern for the authentic well-being of meeting attendees. We at the Global Wellness Summit continue to be at the forefront of this. It's been a privilege to be part of it. And you can read my update when you purchase the report. Second shameless plug. There are three trend writers who could not be with us on the call today, and I just want to give them a shout out because their updates are included in the mid-year report. They are Tonya Callender, research fellow at the Global Wellness Institute, who wrote Adding Color to Wellness, Cecilia Gurr, strategy director TBWA Worldwide, who along with her colleague Skylar Hubler, cultural strategist for TBWA Worldwide, wrote two trends, Money Out Loud and the Self-Care Renaissance. We thank them for their incredible contributions to this report, and I know you'll enjoy reading their new insights. I mentioned the trendium, and I think it's also important to mention the impact these trends have had on the business of wellness, the media value they have garnered year after year. I think it's part of why so many people have registered for this call and why our database keeps growing. We're so proud to have maintained a standard of excellence with this work. I'm going to ask each of the writers with us today to share their update and to talk a little bit about what they're seeing for the future. And we're going to begin with Beth McGroarty, who wrote two of the trends. We're going to discuss the first one now, Hollywood and the entertainment industries jump into wellness. The one and only Beth McGroarty.
Thank you, Nancy. So I'm just going to read this because I have a lot of information here. But as Nancy said, the original trend is about how the entertainment industries are really jumping into wellness now. And it's becoming a much bigger focus on TV and in the music industry. And in our original trend, the section on wellness music explored some pretty amazing ways that tech startups in the music industry are creating sound and music as medicine. And it's really a pretty historic shakeup in how music has been created and consumed. People want music now to help them de-stress, to focus, to sleep, to exercise, or just zone out when they want it. But so as an update, since January, every week there seems there's a new development on the wellness music front. There's a new app, a new medical application, some new way that wellness is getting delivered through our ears. And of course, the pandemic supercharged this trend. We were stuck in our noisy homes and people retreated into their earbuds, into all kinds of ambient and healing music. But this is going to far outlive the pandemic because streaming itself means huge new space for music and sound channels of all kinds. And we're having a hearables revolution, which means that smart headphones and earbuds are taking biometric tracking technology to the ears, which enables a new music that listens to you and your body to deliver precision soundscapes. So in my update, I see 4 trends rising since January. First of all, the wellness music apps and platforms just keep spawning, whether the new Amy or Sona or Alpha Beats, which works like a wellness rather than a graphic equalizer and tweaks the frequencies of your music to calm your mind by rewarding your brain's alpha wave activity. Apps are taking much bolder angles. There's new soundscapes for sexual wellness, like the app Dipsy that combines erotic stories with calming nature and wellness sounds. Everyone knows psychedelics are the zeitgeist, and new apps deliver sound trips. They use music and visuals to simulate psychedelic states, like the new UK-based app Luminate. But it's big media that's jumping in. The BBC has a whole soundscapes for well-being project. This is tons of programs blending music and nature. And UK's Radio 1 launched a 24-hour relax stream, which is a whole day of chilled out music, mindfulness sessions, ASMR, acoustic sleepscapes. And it's notable that biophilic design is now entering the acoustic space, as studies that just came out show that even virtual nature sounds decrease stress and pain. A fascinating part of the trend is these generative music platforms like Endel or WavePass that pull all your biometric data to create an endlessly shifting digital sound bath. They're reaching all new ears and making new moves. For instance, Endel has 300,000 active users now and is about to launch a generative visual plus sound wellness experience on Apple TV. And all the big streaming sites, Spotify to Apple, are making moves to create personalized wellness music. Spotify just filed for a patent, which is technology that gauges your emotions to serve up personalized music. It's both cool and creepy. I think a big trend here is that digital fitness companies are the new music powerhouses. So we all know that the at-home fitness space exploded since the pandemic, and fit tech is set to reach $1.1 trillion by 2023. There's pressure on to create incredible workout and wellness experiences with star instructors and star musicians. And the musicians are thrilled because they reach millions of people daily at the fitness platforms. So all the big digital fitness companies, whether Apple Fitness Plus or Equinox Plus, are making big music moves. And I just want you to consider Peloton. As the Telegraph recently noted, one of the fastest growing music platforms in the world is an exercise bike. They have 1 million subscribers, a $30 billion market value. They streamed 171 million workouts in Q1 2021, 4 times more than in 2020. They're making deals with the likes of Beyoncé and Billie Eilish. They have their own creative music department. They are now a global entertainment company. And it's all because of tightly scripted classes, star instructors with massive social media followings, and exclusive music. This is about content, and they plan to go beyond fitness to become what they call the Netflix of wellness. And you're going to hear more such pronouncements from companies. We're the HBO of wellness, etc. The fourth trend I see rising since January is that there's been some really interesting experimentation with music as medicine in the medical world. So take an example. Spatial is a startup that creates transformative audio experiences for public spaces. They have their eye on the health and wellness space, hotels, spas, and they just created audio sensory spaces at a hospital in California. These tranquility and resiliency rooms transport people from the stressed out hospital to mountains and beaches. And this is healthcare meeting wellness. And I want to note that medicine's even jumping into generative music. So Meta Music UK, the new company, wants to transform healthcare with its technology that uses artificial intelligence and tracks a patient's heart rate and stress to deliver a playlist to them like an IV drip. And I just want to end with, there's a kind of conundrum we've reached. Wellness used to be the antidote to digital overconnection. The future is clear. More wellness is going to get delivered digitally. We need to pay serious attention to how wellness companies are becoming big media companies and how big media is rushing into wellness. This is going to mean ever more super high production value, super immersive experiences that are flowing to our screens and into our earbuds. This is a world where celebrities whisper meditations right into your ears, where soundscapes play even as we sleep. So if digital wellness brings an unprecedented accessibility and affordability, we have to ask new questions. Will we slip into a digital wellness solipsism, alone in our cutoff wellness zones? Will we need something like digital wellness detoxes? That seems strongly stated, but intentional retreats to real people, nature, and places become more important in this digital wave. This is quite a flip at the idea of a digital wellness detox. So that's that.
That was incredible. And of course, what you mentioned and what I was thinking, what's come up in the chat is like, oh my gosh, has wellness become so driven by technology? At the same time that we're hearing about the importance of nature and being outdoors and everything, how do you see that, that conflict kind of?
I don't think it's a conflict, but I think we're entering an era where we have to think about new balances. I mean, there's amazing things that technology can do, especially with accessibility to new populations at a much cheaper price. I mean, the kind of immersive experiences that we're going to see on television with wellness and music. I mean, we need mental health help and we need accessible. So, I don't think it's an either or. It's just sort of the kind of digital is the opposite of wellness is a past. That's so 2019, right?
Okay. Well, incredible. We will be discussing this more later. Beth, thank you so much. I'm now going to ask Elaine Glusac from the New York Times to share with us her update on 2021, the year of the travel reset.
All right, am I unmuted? Okay, great. Yes, so in January of this year, I wrote about 2021 as the year of the travel reset. The idea that a pandemic shocked world would be keen to travel, but more cautiously, slower, nearer to home, and more sustainably, with an eye to supporting communities and environments. Since then, mass vaccination in the United States has freed those inoculated against coronavirus to travel freely, dine without masks, fly with confidence, and I think you all know that leisure travel in the United States has picked up dramatically. Continued border restrictions in much of the world where vaccination rates lag has applied a natural brake on international travel. But the early rebound has been huge. The surge anticipated in the wake of the vaccine rollouts hit earlier and harder than expected, beginning with as early as spring break in the US, when American travelers returned to find scarce rental cars, high-priced flights, expensive accommodations, all of that went along with this unanticipated demand. The number of air passengers in the United States has quadrupled in recent weeks compared to 2020. Air travel remains down about 30%. Much of that is attributed to weakness in business and group travel, as well as foreign travel. Residents of other countries with strong vaccination rates are often more cautious. In Britain, for example, a minority believes that the worst has passed, according to a recent government tourism survey. But what has continued to appeal to travelers, which I discussed in the trend, is the call of nature. When the pandemic urged social isolation, many travelers found solace in nature, and that trend has continued in the wake of vaccine rollouts. Tourism is surging in outdoor destinations like Alaska, Hawaii, and the national parks. In spring, the majority of travelers in Great Britain, for example, chose camping as their most popular means of travel. Mediterranean companies like Greece and Croatia are expecting a really big summer based on their beach appeal and their outdoor lifestyles. Part of this has to do with the summer season in the Northern Hemisphere. It's the season of outdoor living, but the pervasive threat of climate change is another call to embrace nature, and that has only gotten louder. Which leads me to a third continuing trend, and that is healing the planet. The pandemic pause in tourism gave many over-touristed destinations a healing breather. Travelers seem to embrace the lessons of the pandemic by supporting sustainability efforts, from patronizing locally owned restaurants and shops to taking longer trips afforded by work from anywhere policies. which virtual offices allow. Longer and slower travel spread out your carbon footprint, leaving a lighter impact trail. A new survey from the data collection firm that I just got today from Global Data found the most popular, the second most popular trip is sorry, I'm getting some feedback. Anyway, there's growing interest in longer trips. Global Data found that the second most popular trip length is more than 10 days. Compare that to 2019 when the average domestic trip was 4 days and international trips was 9 days. I also think there's a new awareness of where the money goes, and that has taken hold during the pandemic. Personal and planetary wellness seemed to align during the pandemic when thoughtful decision-making was the order of the day. Venice, for example, in this pause, recently banned large cruise ships from docking near the city center and is building new port berths outside of the Venetian lagoon. The city is also proposing fines for littering and more regulations on short-term rentals. So that's another example of the travel reset. I think the rush to return to pre-pandemic norms threatens this new awareness, but the daily news of the effects of climate change is likely to sustain the trend. Technology, I also discussed over-tourism in the travel reset trend, and I think we found that technology is really helping to correct over-tourism. During the pandemic, as places reopened, we saw time ticketing to attractions from Disney World to the Louvre to temples in Kyoto becoming the norm. Efforts to prevent crowding are likely to continue as they improve the visitor experience and protect the very place that crowds are eager to see. In summary, travel is back, as you probably have seen, but it does remain more local for reasons of health, law, sustainability, and sometimes introspection. For many people, it's more purposeful too, as they seek to reunite with family members or pursue some personal goal, like visiting civil rights sites in the United States or cycling across continents, or making plans to travel to safari reserves in Africa where tourism dollars support community employment, healthcare, and education. The rebound in travel has been sharp in the first half of the year in the United States, where vaccination rates are relatively high, but surveys show that younger travelers, particularly millennials and Gen Zers, are keenly interested in sustainability and climate action and are likely to push travel to become more environmentally responsible. That's it.
Elaine, thank you so much. That was fantastic. Very, very thorough. I think in the news a lot these days are the problems of over-tourism in places, of parks, national parks, places that, forests and, places are being overrun because people are seeking nature. And so, a real consciousness about that is obviously necessary. And you think that that will even out somehow, that will balance out?
Yeah, I think it's been very helpful. It's given organizations opportunities to think about how to organize themselves. Like the National Park Service in the United States is a good example. You have to now have a time ticket to go to Yosemite. And you know what? That's good for the redwoods. And also it slows us down. We must now plan more in advance. You can't be quite as spontaneous as you could before. But in a way, this is very good for the environment and possibly better for ourselves.
And wellness tourism, wellness travel, people seeking those kinds of experiences. Where are you seeing that in the landscape?
I think it's huge. I wrote in the trend that, all travel is wellness travel now. I think there's a real attention to mental health and this whole idea that everyone needs a break and vacations are really important to that, and getting away and experiencing new things, whether it's, forest bathing or doing some sort of human powered travel, which is really good for your fitness. I think all of travel is now wellness travel. I want everyone to embrace that.
Well, you are absolutely preaching to the choir on this call, and we're all very happy to hear it, and it makes a lot of sense. So Elaine, thank you so much, and we'll get back to some other questions for you later. Next up is Sandra Ballentine from W Magazine to tell us that we still need to just breathe. Sandra?
Oh, let me unmute. I am unmuted. Okay. I need a master class in public speaking, so everyone forgive me for that. So when I started, my trend actually started with a story I wrote for W on sound wellness, music and wellness. And I went to a breathwork session in London and had a really profound experience. At first I was like, I don't really want to lie down with all these people. My pants are too tight. I couldn't get into it. I dropped in so hard and heavy that I felt things that were incredible. Just my whole energy shifted. I was tingling. All the things they say happens when you really respond to good breath work, or good guided breath work, I should say. So when Beth asked me, or you all asked me to do this trend in the beginning of the year, or for 2021, I kind of was just thinking in terms of my experience, but I spoke to a group of experts, and Sage Rader, for example, of Breath Church, he's an incredible breath worker, and he sort of told me that what's really happening, and the interesting thing that's happening, is applied breath work, not the woo-woo. Not that there's anything wrong with the woo-woo. I love me some woo-woo, but applied breath work, as it, in COVID, we're all stressed. Many of us are depressed. The focus on our mental health needs is huge, and breath work, it may not be a total panacea, but it really can help with stress, anxiety, and there are clinical studies that prove that it can positively affect chronic pain, COPD, hypertension, long COVID. Respiratory therapy is being used in clinics around the world right now to help people who have issues with their lungs as the result of suffering from COVID. So the applied breathwork world, it's huge, and people are using it to help children, to help them with anxiety, and I think that's huge. People are like Jasmine Marie, Black Girls Breathing, bringing it to underserved communities. Really important to help with the particular stresses that those communities can experience that can lead to long-term illness. In my update, I just sort of took a look. I always obviously looked on Instagram. Yes, there are more breath coaches than ever. TikTok, there's cure hypertension with breath work. Lots of funny videos on that. So I think the trend is continuing to build in a positive way. And I see a lot more breath tech than when I started reporting on the trend. And breath work is being incorporated into apps, and there are one-on-one. You can have a guided breathwork session with an expert through our Breath Collective, is one of my favorite resources for that. And I mean, celebrities are, like Beth was saying, are in on it, of course. The sleep app Calm is doing a content series with Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello, who I know are huge breathwork fans and meditation fans. And it's called Breathe Into It. Breath tech wearables just continue to gain momentum. There's one in Denmark that's quite amazing. It's a smart breathing trainer called AeroFit that I'm particularly interested in. I also, in speaking to some of the people I wrote about the trend, in my trend, Lisa de Narvaez, for example, who teaches Bliss Point, and she's like a festival goddess. She's amazing. She travels the world and she teaches her method, and that was where I had who I had the experience with in London that I referred to. She's consulting or teaching her method to employees at Google. Sage Rader is consulting for a huge law firm in New York City, because as he put it, companies are having a challenge with team building because people aren't together in a room. So he's helping managers, lead effectively and build group dynamics by using their breath, which is pretty incredible. Dan Brule went so far as to say that breath work is the new yoga, and I'm not sure yogis or people who practice would agree with that. However, I do think you're seeing a lot more somatic yoga, which incorporates breath work. Breath work's being incorporated into a lot of things, and I think if companies can expose their employees to its benefits, that's great. And I also think if companies can help by lift the communities that their employees live in by perhaps helping with funding of, different practices that can help with wellness and underserved communities, that will be a big thing. And of course, the end of my update was together again. We are seeing breathwork in person again, which is super exciting. Places like Six Senses are going to have an in-person harvest at Kaplikaya in October, excuse me, where Lisa will be teaching, and people were telling me they're breaking out in person again, which I thought was really exciting. So that's my update.
Sandra, thank you so much. And the chat is filled with breathwork comments and information, and lots of people on the call I think are involved in it. Do you think that, I mean, it is so huge now, and it is certainly in part a reaction to the pandemic. People, it was such a attacked respiratory problems. And so, it caused people to really wake up and pay attention. So what do you think the legs are? Will this last beyond the past? Is this going to become part of the normal routine for people when they think about prevention and wellness?
I think it is. I think for people who actually started doing it, or maybe it was online, or obviously most of it was virtual for a while, I think it helped people with their day-to-day stress. And I don't think you'd give that up. I mean, I definitely see positive effects. I mean, I forget to breathe. I haven't breathed since this morning because I was so nervous. But there are some techniques I tried to do. It does really help. So I think if you've experienced that, it helping you, you're not going to stop, because it really doesn't take very much time, and you have all the tools. It's just a tool in your wellness toolkit, I like to say, and I wouldn't give it up. I think it definitely, I say it has lungs, not legs.
There you go. Well, now you can breathe. Now you can catch your breath while we hear from Veronica Schreibeis Smith. Veronica wrote her trend about spiritual and numinous moments in architecture, and it changed the way that we not only looked at space, but felt about that space. Veronica?
Great, thank you, Nancy. So this topic has been very dear to my heart for a long time. Actually, what led me into the wellness architecture space to begin with 20 years ago. But what the trend was really about was how we live in this fast pace, almost this frenetic pace that we're living life in. And it's not going to go away. That information overload, that digital era is here to stay, which means that now, even more so than ever, we need to balance it out with these spiritual and numinous moments. And numinous, just as a reminder for everybody, are those transcendental experiences that really connect us to something that's vital within us, that fascinates us, that's a little bit mysterious and brings awe and richness to life. And so there are actually ways that we can integrate this, and need to be integrating this into our architecture. So one of the cool things that have happened during COVID is our pace slowed down. And that was huge. It was hard, it was uncomfortable, but it was huge, because with a slower pace, we were then able to make space, physical space, head space, and most importantly, heart space, really putting our lifestyles underneath a microscope and saying, okay, how do I want to live? Am I happy with where I'm at in life? And is my environment actually supporting me? So that's one of the biggest things that now, that was kind of quietly happening when this trend was published in January. But now, as the world opens up, as people start to travel, as people are coming out, people are also coming out, and they have a much more open minds about how they live their life and how to design it to work for them. So the other big thing that we wrote about in January was about Maslow's pyramid, and really saying, okay, a cave was cool thousands of years ago. A few decades ago, what was really happening was these McMansions, but a lot of them are being vacated. A lot of clients are coming to us that want more quality in their life. And so that just shows that there's this mass paradigm shift happening throughout humanity right now, where people are moving from the self-esteem tier, where they had worked hard their whole life and they had a certain idea of what success meant and how architecture could respond to that. Now their idea of how architecture can respond to their life has changed because they're moving up into the self-actualization. So the really cool things that we're just seeing and that my office is seeing literally in the last 6 months since this trend was published is that people want different experiences in their daily life, and their idea of family or work has shifted, their idea of home. So for example, just yesterday, we had some clients that said, I want my home to be a temple. And if I had some place to go, I wouldn't actually even build a new home because I want to be thoughtful about the planet. But this idea that your space is sacred and that it's for your family and it's something that grounds you is a very spiritual need to help you go deal with the fast pace of life. Other really interesting trends that we're seeing is people have actually asked us to have their homes or workplaces remind them to breathe. So going back to what Sandra was just saying was like, can you design something in like nudge architecture that just reminds me to take a deep breath and reminds me to be present and grounded throughout my day? We're also working with multiple clients, Deepak Chopra and others that are asking us to help the space tune their chakras or to design them at a certain vibrational quality that they can help tune into their energetic bodies. So, you know, some of these journeys, they're all different, but they're very personal journeys. So for example, some people might want no mirrors in their bathroom because they want to stop identifying with their ego, where others are like, I have never embraced or loved myself. I'm trying to practice self-love and self-care. I want mirrors. So there is no right or wrong solution, but the point is getting to know people and to really understand where they're at in their current journey. And the Wellness Architecture and Design Initiative is going to be publishing trends coming out in July, but you'll see one of those big trends is that people are really investing their wealth, what they couldn't invest last year, into their spaces. The AEC, architecture, engineering, and construction industry is exploding right now. And sometimes it's as simple as cleaning up their space. There's a lot of DIY solutions out there. And this kind of goes back to what Beth was saying is we have had so much digital interface in the last year that people are recognizing that too much digital, at the end of the day, we live in a physical world. We have a physical human body, and AI and digital are no replacement. So connection to nature, people are cleaning up their backyards, their balconies. You know, what Elaine was talking about with travel, people really seeking out nature. The same thing is happening with architecture, trying to bring nature in, and then really rethinking that the last trend that we've seen in the last 6 months, or like update, I guess, is people are really rethinking what a home office looks like. And ironically, even though more people are working from home, their office space is getting smaller because so many people are on laptops, or they might need to stand in front of something and it's more talking like this and it's less paperwork. So the big heavy desk is going away. And the other thing that they're trying to do is take that space, that office space, and turn it into a wellness room. And so a lot of times they're meditating or doing yoga in the same space that they're doing their work, or they're shifting their workplace throughout the day. So the physical rooms are actually starting to shift as well.
Oh my gosh, Veronica, that is incredible. And you know, the thing about this trend is that when people make a decision to do these things, it's fairly permanent. I mean, they're talking about, I mean, it's not, you know, I'm going to try this, I'm going to take a class, I'm going to take a trip. They are putting serious dollars behind a permanent residence. And so that, you know, it says something about, I think, the staying power of those kinds of people being aware of wellness. I mean, are you at all surprised by the reaction of this?
No, not surprised. And I think that it took people slowing down. I've had a lot of people kind of confide in me and say, you know, when I had all of this time and I was working from home, I realized all sorts of things not about the space. It doesn't, again, what's really important is the architecture and the space isn't what's important. The personal journey is. So people have realized, I want something different from my life. And then the immediate thing they realize is, okay, my surroundings influence that. It empowers me to live the life that I want to live. And so these are very permanent elements that people are integrating, and they're willing to spend money on it because it is their lifestyle, it's their happiness, it's their longevity, it's their vitality.
Veronica, you mentioned that you mentioned nudge architecture. You kind of threw that away and we're like, what? Wait a minute. So you need to tell us what nudge architecture is. And then you mentioned that somebody wanted you to, in fact, encourage them to breathe through the way you are designing their built environment. Can you just quickly tell us that story and tell us what nudge architecture really is?
Yeah, so nudge architecture is linked to environmental psychology. And so it's the idea that that our environment influences, right? So if you place this, like if you have a refrigerator, for example, and it's foggy on the top and frosted on the bottom, and there's fruit and waters that are clear, people are going to see that and they're going to open it up, and they're probably going to grab one of those and not notice that down below where they couldn't see is the Coca-Cola and the more sugary caffeinated beverages. So it's not taking away a choice. It's still allowing people to choose whatever lifestyle they want, but it's just helping encourage them to make smart decisions that could lead to more health and well-being. And then as far as the breath goes, those solutions are, again, very different for different people, but the challenge that the client presented to our office is, I want you to design in to the architecture reminders for me to breathe, to be grounded, to be present, and take that breath. So we're looking at multiple different solutions or way of doing that. Everything from it might be symbology or artifacts to like moments that if you move through the space, there's just a little cue of like, maybe the space opens up, it encourages you to look up, and then you kind of know, because it's been communicated to you, that that's your opportunity to like breathe, be present, notice the color of the leaves outside. Has the season changed? Where are you in the world and in that moment?
Okay, well, I for one would like to live in your world and your built environments, and I'm sure everyone else does too. We will be sharing everybody's contact information you presented on this call, so you can be in touch. I do just want to also say that Veronica's trend is featured in today's Trendium, the publication that Beth curates and writes bi-weekly. And it's likely arrived in your inboxes while you've been on this call. If you don't receive this, it's very insightful, it's valuable, and it's free. Sign up on our website when you're there purchasing the Trends Report. And if you have previously purchased the Trends Report, the new report with the update included is half price to you. So you will get a special code from Beatrice after this call and be able to do that. Now, for the final trend that we're going to discuss today, back to Beth McGroarty, the future of immune health. Stop boosting, start balancing. Beth?
Thanks, Nancy. So yeah, the original trend was really, its mission was to really take on the evidence-challenged claims of immune boosting and all the supplements and therapies that the wellness world blitzed at people during the pandemic. We argued in the trend that if you care about immune resilience, which is the better word than boosting, that metabolic health, the microbiome, and personalized nutrition need to move to the very, very center of the discussion. So 5 months later, sadly, the immune boosting continues in wellness retreats and products. It marches on. But I think as the world gets vaccinated, we're really unpacking the big health lessons from COVID-19 now. And one of them is that the microbiome is control central for immune health, and an unhealthy gut is the path to so many physical and mental conditions. So in the last 5 months, the microbiome has moved further to the center in both medicine and wellness. but we need to call it microbiomes, plural now, as there's not only burning urgency for gut health, but a big new focus on improving other key microbial ecosystems. I mean, if you want to Google the research on the microbiome, it's an avalanche of studies, something new every day. I mean, just a few in the last few months. One study, the more your gut bacteria changes over your lives, the more likely you are to be significantly more healthy and to live a lot longer. Another, just 2 weeks of a high fiber diet dramatically alters your microbiome. Compassion is associated with gut microbial diversity, while loneliness decreases it. And crucially, poor gut health is a main factor in early chronic diseases and aging for minority populations. So in this space, there's big momentum for biotech companies that are bent on the hugely Herculean task of unriddling those trillions of organisms to create better interventions and microbiome testing for personalized nutrition. I'll just mention one. The Israeli app Day 2 is seeing such great clinical results using microbiome testing to deliver real-time food prescriptions to people with metabolic disorders. They just raised another $37 million, and their footprint in the American healthcare system is about to grow. You know, the pre, the pro, and now the trendy postbiotics are exploding now. The wellness market is again leading with the pop and guzzlem gut health boosting supplements, which may have a positive impact, but this $50 billion market is ahead of the science. The best gut health weapons remain slow wellness, fiber-rich unprocessed foods, exercise, sleep, stress reduction. So for now, the wellness world remains in the pole position. But now I want to move to the fact that the microbiome refers to all the bacteria, viruses, and fungi that live in and on our bodies. So now we're seeing the mouth, vaginal, and skin microbiomes getting major attention. And the focus is on restoring, often rewilding, the disrupted microbiota in these crucial ecosystems. Our mouth, it's home to 700 bacterial species. We know that bad bacteria causes tooth decay and gum disease. But both modern dental hygiene, where we blast our mouths with germ-killing toothpaste and mouthwashes, and our modern lives filled with carb and sugar-heavy diets and stress, decimate our mouth ecosystem, which in turn hurts the immune system. The future will be decoding the oral microbiota to create personalized therapies, a whole new idea, wellness dentistry, and more oral microbiome-focused companies like Galenay's new product range. And I think a new focus on oral wellness as part of holistic health at wellness destinations. Let's move to the next microbiome, the vagina. 300 bacterial species and disruptions in it cause 30 plus serious conditions. Because of their reproductive systems, women actually have tens of millions more microbiome cells than men's do. But because they're women, research has been lacking. There's been a great and important research project that just happened. The University of Maryland just unveiled what they call Virgo. It's a historic mapping of the vaginal microbiome where they sequenced over 1 million of its active genes. And this will be a force in the future of vaginal microbiome testing and personalized vaginal probiotics, and new companies like June Bio, which is a vaginal microbiome test, and new vaginal probiotic product lines, whether Eucora's or Dr. Barbara Sturm's, are coming. The last part is that experts, and the Wall Street Journal has a great article about this. One of the big beauty trends is brands that are restoring the skin microbiome. Our skin microbiota strengthens its barrier, it traps moisture, it prevents infection and inflammation, but it's terribly disrupted by diet, stress, pollution, and most importantly, our manic beauty culture of over-cleansing, over-exfoliating, and slathering product upon product, often filled with harsh retinol and acids. So new brands like Essie Skincare or Beekman 1802 are restoring the skin's microbiome to its wild state. This is where good microbes can thrive. And it's a novel idea in beauty, right? Less is more. So anyway, with microbiomania, as I call it, you're gonna see some moves go too far. Like I just saw a new microbiome test for cats' mouths. Skincare companies will borrow concepts and gravitas from the gut microbiome, using phrases like leaky skin. And please never speak to me of a hair microbiome. But anyway, I want to end with something that I think is important. The pandemic has created a microbiome crisis. So health experts agree the hypersterilization and distancing of our bodies and spaces poses an extraordinary immune system threat if we let it go on. Our microbiome is now radically dewilded. There's a heady piece in Dazed that asks whether we're designing our own biological and psychological demise with all the touchless and sterile spaces and products of the future. We need a future where we collaborate with viruses and bacteria rather than generically obliterate them. And this new focus on the microbiome means a radical shakeup in the way that we see the human body, health, and wellness. We are mostly microbes. They're 57% of our cells. Only 43% of our cells are human. So I think we need a new dirty and less clean wellness. We need to feed our microbiota well through diet, interactions with people, and the soil. We need to vaccinate and get back to some microbial bathing in people in real nature. And I feel soil becoming more important here. There's studies about it. We need to bathe in it. We need to be food grown in soil with healthy and not destroyed microbiomes. And new research that just came out indicates an ancient connection between soil and the human gut microbiota.
Beth, is dirty wellness a trend for next year? Was that its did you just preview for us something coming?
No, I mean, I'm frustrated with clean wellness right now myself, but no, I mean, but seriously, this touchless, disinfected, spatially, I mean, this is an immune system crisis. And you know, the idea of soil bathing and human bathing, I mean, this is our microbiome thrives through interactions with our environment. And I you know, it's a reason for people to go back to wellness classes and destinations and back to life is that it's an immune and microbiome issue as well, not just an emotional one.
Okay, absolutely incredible. Dirty wellness is now, it's going to trend on every social media platform from here on. So remember, you heard it here first, and you heard it from Beth McGroarty. Since we have two leading journalists on this call, Elaine and Sandra, and I was going to ask if either of them would like to ask a question of any of the trends authors, because I know you're in your journalistic heads, you have probably been formulating questions and thoughts after hearing what you're hearing. Sandra, would you like to ask a question of anybody? Just unmute yourself and let us know. And Elaine, same for you.
Hi. I loved all of everybody's presentations. Veronica, fascinating. The nudge architecture is fascinating to me. What would you consider your favorite project of any wellness, sort of any architecture or design tinged with a wellness element? What would be maybe your two top favorites?
Oh, that's a tough question. There's, you know, two come to mind. I find like that's like asking somebody for their favorite food, or a well-versed traveler, what's your favorite country?
Or your favorite child.
Your favorite child, yeah, totally. So, but you know, the projects that really excite me, you know, it's kind of like the next one. It's where you have a client that is really thinking about how to innovate and push the envelope in a, not for the sake of innovation, but in a really authentic way that has a meaningful impact on their lives. So right now we're working on a multifamily residential wellness community outside of LA. And it's really interesting because it has these really beautiful amenities that, you know, it's not the yoga mat in the corner, it's garden spaces for everybody. Even though it's an apartment building, everybody has their own outside space on the earth to like walk out from their apartments. And that connection to nature and grounding is really a key driver in that. Another cool aspect about that is there's inclusionary affordable housing. And we're really studying just the social impact of what percentage can, you know, at what point does affordable housing impact people's, you know, the culture at large, as opposed to if you have some people that might not have had access to a well life, let's say, they might still be in a survival mode. And how does that not only change them, but how does that change future generations? And really talking about community and culture and a way of life. So That's one. And then I guess, the second one, it's not one, there's multiple that are in this.
I'm going to ask you to just quickly, because I want to get to a couple of others.
Oh, sure. So the residential projects, and I hit on those, I discussed those briefly in my trend. So those two.
Thank you, Veronica. Elaine, do you have a question for one of the trends authors?
Well, they're all amazing. And I have to say, I actually took notes because I thought these will be my next stories. Audio sensory spaces, a learning to breathe, nudge architecture, which has been discussed, slow wellness and dirty wellness, of course. But of course, I look at this and I say, well, how can we actualize this in a travel way? So I would like to ask Sandra about learning to breathe, whether that's a destination story. Is that a place thing, or is it finding a practitioner where you live? Is there a place that's like associated with breathing well?
That's a good question. Actually, I think it's all of that. I think there are all of those things. When I was doing the trend, I noted that a lot of destinations are incorporating breath work or meditations with breath work. I was taken by at Miraval, I think in Austin has, or maybe it's the Arizona one, has a really interesting nature walk. So they're incorporating things that you talked about into treatments. So there'll be breath work and forest bathing mixed together, for example. And I love to do breath work at summits. Like Summit LA always brings amazing practitioners. So if you have a chance to join one of those that I think they'll be doing in real life soon. Again, they have amazing practitioners and you can do breath work there. And I'm trying to think how you can, after class, I'll actually email you some things that are not coming to my mind when put on the spot in front of how many? 17, well, maybe we've lost some, but almost 700 people.
Sandra, thank you so much. And thank you, Elaine. I just want to say, I want to remind everybody that these presentations have been absolutely incredible, and I can't thank the authors enough for being here. And there are other trends that were not represented on this call. One in particular that, we all try to look at these trends and then have them have impact in what we do, kind of walk the walk a bit. One of the trends that was written by a research fellow at the Global Wellness Institute was adding color to wellness. And it was really about the disparities for communities of color and wellness and what is happening. And I just want to mention that you will soon be getting an invitation to a new series of these kinds of calls that we are hosting with Dr. Nicola Finley, who is going to lead these calls. And we're going to talk about all of that. And that is going to be a quarterly series. So you'll be hearing. So we are going to try to walk the walk. It is 11 o'clock. I'd like to give the last word to Beth McGroarty. If there's anything, Beth, you've got everybody talking about dirty wellness, slow wellness. Any last wellness thought before we all unmute and give you a little love?
Well, I had a whole bunch of trends, but we'll save them for another call. I just wanted to say one thing. I'm feeling a different vibe around trends themselves. So while the investment space in wellness and surveys of consumers show that it's a much more important value to people everywhere, I'm feeling the trendy trends, the churn, the pace, the mechanism of that endless kind of slow down. And I think there's a fatigue with celebrity-driven wellness. And I keep wondering, is it the eye of a storm, or is it the start of a new storm that's going to look different? I mean, I just feel that the whole status of trends has changed quite a bit in the last 3 or 4 months.
Thank you so much, Beth. Let's say that it is a new storm and it's a good storm. I'm going to ask everybody to unmute yourselves and give these fabulous people some global love.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.